I think one of the best advices for candidates as they prepare to the exam is you have to really organize yourself. There's so much information that entails preparing for an exam of this type. And so what worked for me is you have to establish a schedule. You have to put a schedule together, you put a calendar in terms of whatever, 6 months, 8 months, whatever is the game plan that you have. And with that calendar, try to be realistic in terms of your time. How much can you dedicate to it? You can dedicate an hour a day, 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, whatever is the case, and stick to it. That's critical. Use that as something that is your guide in terms to how it's going to carry yourself. I think critical is to touch the information as little, but every day, at least being involved and touching the information. I used also, when you break down your training, you have to think about, the good thing about structuring a study program is that you're not being redundant in your studies. So you're really focusing on things that you really need to learn, things that your weak spots. And that's the other thing with this, is you're able to understand where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are. And obviously your strengths, you're good with that. Focus on the things that you're weaker. And that's, for most candidates, at least for me as well, was one of those things that you don't want to tackle those things. But that's that's the difference maker at the end of the day. So understand where those weaknesses are and focus on those, and then develop a study program that carries you along the way. And balance it in terms of theory, in terms of practical, and in terms of the tasting. So you have several days dedicated for the theory component, which carries on for all the other aspects, but dedicated to research information. Be able to establish your outlines based on that research information. Create note cards. For example, I use note cards based on theory that I was struggling with in terms of learning and memorizing, retaining that information. And remember, at the end of the day, I had this pile of note cards, would put it in a box. I have 2 boxes. And basically I would put out the cards, answer the question. If I failed, it went into the I need to revisit. And I did that exercise over and over again until ultimately at the end, I'd answer all the note cards. And then that was the end of that exercise. From a tasting perspective, I think a lot of candidates get too caught up in the blind tasting component. And I think that, yes, that is that, but you need to, it's like running a marathon and training, running a marathon every day. You know, how you get there, you have to do the little stuff, all the workouts that go in between to build up the stamina to do your blind tasting or you run the marathon. So I did a lot of semi-blind tastings. So you pick a group of varieties that are similar. For example, they give you a little bit of struggle. You pick them all together, you know what they are. You randomly, if you have somebody can do it for you, or you can do it yourself, just put a sticker underneath with a number assigned and just move them around and just do the assessment of what it is. It's Pinot Noir, Sangiovese, thick skin grape varieties, thicker skin grape varieties, aromatic varieties, neutral varieties. You know, create that and do that exercise over and over again. And the other thing is structure. For me, that was kind of the difference maker from a blind tasting perspective. So I had to train for that, like an athlete, like going to the gym and lifting weights. So I had to, for example, I had a neutral wine, and I altered that neutral wine in terms of adding a little bit of tartaric acid. I went to a winemaker's shop and bought tartaric acid and add increments of it. So I can be able to assess the higher acidity to the lower acidity. Did the same with tannins, did the same with alcohol, did the same with sugar. And that was a difference maker for me, because then when I went to the real wines, I was really heightened in terms of my perception, in terms of structural components. And at the end of the day, for me, that was the difference maker, like I said, in terms of blind tasting, having that structural component assessment very clear.